Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good morning to everyone. It gives me great pleasure to be here today in the presence of distinguished speakers and guests, and I'm delighted to be with my teacher, Professor Hashim Kamali. I didn't realize he's been here for the last 8-9 years. I last met him when he was in ISTAC. So it is again a great honor to be invited to this event. So I would like to touch on an important topic that is facing Islamic finance today. Is Islamic finance a socially responsible finance? Now, if you look at the standards defined by the Quran, Muslims, of course, have to comply with all the requirements and obligations set out in the Quran. And one of the obligations of Muslims is to ensure that their food that they consume, the income that they earn, are halal and tayyib. So the Quran talks about consume food which is halal and tayyib. If you analyze the Quranic verse, why does it need to describe halal and tayyib? Because tayyib, by definition, has to be halal. It's very difficult to find a situation where a food is non-halal but yet tayyib. So, by defining two standards, which is halal and tayyib, Islam is basically giving us two standards of compliance. Minimum standard is halal, but the ideal standard is tayyib. So when we look at how we are practicing it today, so we ensure that the food that we consume is halal. So take, for example, chicken. We want to make sure that the chicken is slaughtered in a halal manner. But often, we don't realize that when we end up cooking it, we deep fry it, we add on a lot of seasoning, we add on a lot of sauces that may make the chicken, which was halal, less tayyib. As opposed to, for example, steaming the chicken and adding natural herbs that could actually make the halal chicken tayyib. Can you see the standards that Islam is imposing? It doesn't mean that the deep fried, highly seasoned halal chicken is not halal. It is halal, but it may not achieve the aspirational standards of tayyib. So everything we do in life, there are these two challenges between halal and tayyib. The same thing goes for environment. So if you are in an industry that is halal, say for example we are in palm oil industry. Palm oil industry is a halal industry because the produce of palm oil is halal. But when we develop this palm oil industry and we cut down trees and forests and jungles, displacing the local communities there, the natives in that area, we disrupt the migratory trails of the animals, we pollute the environment, the action then lead to, for example, erosion of land and lead to flooding in that area. Is that really tayyib? So we have created a halal business out of a non-tayyib activity. So the Quranic injunction by saying that you must consume food which is halal and tayyib, by definition is asking us to have two screening. The first screening is a minimum standard, which is halal. The second standard is the maximum standard we should aspire. In fact, because the Quran used the word halal and tayyib, halalan wa tayyiban, many scholars look at it as both are equally important. So not only you need to have the halal screening, when JAKIM does the halal screening, they also need to invoke the social screening. So Islam has established rights for everyone. In fact, animals have rights too. So if you look at animal rights and you then compare what Islam prescribes for animals, the rights prescribed by Islam to animals, and then compare to what we are actually doing today when it comes to breeding of animals. Today, if you look at the poultry farming, the chicken that you eat today may be halal, but may not necessarily be tayyib, because the chicken that have been bred today, their rights have been violated. If you go to the farms, the poultry farms, the chicken never even see daylight. In many farms you find that they are incubated in an incubator and then rolled out into basically a conveyor belt that brings them to the first station where they are grown, and then next they are fattened, and their feet never has touched the ground. So you find that if you apply the standards of animal rights to the way we are producing our poultries and other animals for consumption, we may not be complying with the tayyib standards. So I think as Muslims, we need to read the Quran comprehensively and apply a much higher standard. So in the West today, you are clearly given choices. So if you go to a supermarket in Britain or in America, you will find, for example, sometimes 2, 3, 4 types of chicken. One they call caged chicken. That means the chicken has been bred in cage. That's what we have in Malaysia now. Most of the chicken are caged chicken. Then you have barn chicken, means they are bred in barns. Then you have free range chicken, means they are running, ayam kampung, the free range chicken. So you find that they label the way the chicken has been raised or bred, and of course the price also goes up. The caged chicken price will be much less than the free range, for example, because free range means they need more space, they need more caring in order to breed them versus just putting in a cage. And in Malaysia, the experience we have seen is that the chicken only sees light during feeding time, so they're always kept in the dark so that they don't have much movement, and they basically get fed faster. So they grow, I think within 35, 36 days they're slaughtered. Now why I'm giving this example is, we as a society have a social responsibility towards not only human beings but to the environment, to the animals that coexist with us. So the Quran was given as a mercy to all beings in this world. So the Quran refers to an-nas, meaning all living beings have been given this mercy. And today as Muslims we are not discharging this mercy. So this presentation looks at how to integrate Islamic finance with sustainability. Today in Malaysia, after more than 33 years since the first Islamic bank was set up in 1983, we have a market share of 27%. This is the latest statistics. So in Malaysia, if you look at the total financing in Malaysia, total loans given out by the banking sector in Malaysia, 27% of the loans is Islamic finance. And there are 27 players, banks, takaful, entities in Malaysia. But if you look at the size of Muslims in Malaysia, we should have had at least 60 to 70% of the loan book to be Islamic. So if you look at the statistics, only 27%, after 33 years of promotion, of development in Islamic banking, only 27% is Islamic banking. The rest, 73%, is conventional riba-based banking. And of the 27%, half of the customers are non-Muslims. You'll be very surprised to see how much Bank Islam gives financing to non-Muslims. How much CIMB Islamic provides financing to non-Muslims. So that means majority of Muslims in Malaysia are still banking conventionally. This is the strange part. We don't see that in the food sector. Majority of the restaurants in Malaysia are halal restaurants. You do have restaurants which could be pork free or non-halal, but majority of the restaurants in Malaysia are halal. Muslims can freely go, whether it's McDonald's or whether it is a restaurant serving Malay food, for example. You always find halal restaurants in Malaysia. And you do find Islamic banks everywhere. There is no shortage of Islamic banks or Islamic takaful or Islamic asset management funds. But Muslims in Malaysia are still agnostic. Many times when I have reached out to Muslims to see if, let's say, they're a CIB customer, and if I ask them, do you have a home financing with us? They said yes. Is that Islamic or conventional? Most often I get this answer, oh, I'm not sure. Now, how can you be a Muslim and you consciously eat halal food? You go out of the way when you go abroad. The first thing Muslims will do when they go abroad, they will check. Bangkok ada halal restaurant ke, London ada halal food. But in their home country where the Islamic banking is ubiquitously present, we are not focused. We are not actually taking Islamic banking. So there are many reasons. One of the reasons is most Muslims do not see that they are involved in riba. If you talk to most Muslims, they say, no, I'm not involved in riba. And the reason why they feel that they're not involved in riba is because they don't see the word riba in the bank statement. They see the word, what do they see? Faedah. So when they see the word faedah, means it must be, this must be faedah. How can be tak berfaedah kan? So they see the word faedah, also an Arabic word, so it must be Islamic. So they cannot see the distinction between faedah and riba. And this has been a challenge in almost all Muslim countries. In Saudi Arabia, the same concept of faedah has been used even in Makkah and Medina. Makkah and Medina, 15 years ago, had the highest interest-based deposits in Saudi Arabia. That's the reality. And the reason how they were able to do interest-based banking was changing the word interest to faedah. And Muslims were quite agnostic. They were saying, tak apalah, as long as they don't see the word riba, it's okay. Until the judge, the chief judge in Makkah, Sheikh Al-Mani, basically came out with a fatwa of saying that, look, you cannot even have the word faedah. And then they shifted to Islamic banking. So the challenge for Islamic banking is how to actually embrace more customers to come to Islamic banking. Most Muslims I see, when they are critical about Islamic banking, they always give examples of bad experience they've had in the past. And I don't blame them for it, because the Islamic banking products have created a lot of issues with the customers. Because Malaysia had adopted a very liberal approach to Islamic banking products, which then created some side effects. See, when you become very liberal in the adoption of Islamic principles, you have unintended consequences which are negative. So when Malaysia led the way in order to create growth, they basically went and allowed a lot of new innovations in Islamic banking that caused a lot of customer dissatisfaction. So the history continued. Although today Islamic banks have really changed the way the products are designed, and the customer experience and user experience is on par with conventional banking, the old memories still linger, and many Muslims still feel that I'll rather take conventional because I know it is haram. This is a logic that most Muslims come and tell, that I don't mind taking conventional because I know it is haram. But Islamic, I think, I'm not sure whether it's haram or halal. So since I'm not sure whether it's haram or halal, I think this is a fictitious transaction. Many have told openly, this is just a fiction, therefore we'll rather go with the haram. At least our conscience is clear, it's haram. We don't want to be involved in a fictitious transaction. So we can talk about why it appears as fictitious, but today is not the topic. I believe for the future of Islamic finance has to embrace socially responsible finance. Because we have to go beyond just product design. And often Muslims feel that Islamic banking is not really Islamic because the pricing is the same. This is another dilemma Muslims face. They look at both the products, one is conventional, the other is Islamic, and then they see the price is the same. So conventional, let's say you're buying a house. Most of you have this experience when you come to buy a car or a house. When you buy a house, you check what is the rate for a conventional mortgage. Let's say the rate is 4.5% for 20 years. Then you go to Bank Islam and ask for home financing, Islamic. And you see it's also 4.5%. Then intuitively you come to a conclusion that if haram 4.5% is the same as halal 4.5%, what's the difference? Must be the same. So I shouldn't bother whether it's Islamic or conventional because the pricing is the same. So we then try to say, okay, fine, you don't want same pricing, we give you a higher pricing. Because this is the cost for being Sharia compliance. You want Sharia compliance, okay, we give you 5%. Good lah. You don't want same pricing, we give you higher pricing. Then the reaction is even more negative. They say this is zalim. Because you are charging 5% when riba is 4.5%, therefore we will go with riba. So the only way we can win is by giving you a lower pricing. So if the conventional banks are charging 4.5%, we say, okay, we give you 4%. But if we give you at 4%, then you have to bear in mind, all the money that we are giving as financing is coming from the depositors. Banks don't have our own, we only have 10% of the capital, 10-12%. The rest are all coming from depositors. All of you are putting money in the bank. We take your money and give financing. If we are giving out financing at 4%, lower than market, then your deposit rate will be lower by 50 basis points. So instead of getting 3%, you'll be getting 2.5%. Then again the reaction has been, oh, this is also not fair. If conventional bank is paying 3% interest, why are you paying 2.5% profit? Okay, I take the money and put in the conventional bank. Because of this customer behavior, we end up having the same price as conventional. We cannot get out from that pricing mindset. So customer behavior pushes us towards the same pricing. But the same customer behavior doesn't occur in day-to-day food experience. So if, let's say, a restaurant which is not halal is selling nasi goreng at 3 ringgit, nasi goreng ayam, for example, or nasi ayam, and a halal restaurant is selling at 5 ringgit, I don't see any Muslim going and eating the non-halal nasi ayam because it's cheaper. Right? If the halal nasi ayam is more expensive than non-halal, they will still go and buy the halal. So that price argument doesn't occur in the food sector, but it occurs in the financial sector. So this is the biggest challenge we are facing. So in order to migrate beyond just pricing and documentation. We want to make sure that Islamic finance actually looks at sustainability. This is a work in progress. We are not there yet. We are just laying the foundation, where we want to make sure businesses that we finance. So if you are financing a company that is in the mining sector, for example. So let's say they are in Pahang, they are mining bauxite. They show us their business financials, very healthy, very profitable. So we give them the financing. 1 year later, we discovered that they actually had mined unsustainably. Basically, they have literally cleared the mountains and now is creating flooding. So as far as the banks are concerned, we say no, we are not involved in this. We are just giving financing. The financing is 100% Islamic because we do ijara. And the way ijara works is, we, instead of giving money as a loan, we basically buy the machinery and we lease it to them. And the company then has to pay us a rental. But what we have indirectly done is we have given this financing to this company, which has cleared the mountains, cut the trees and the forest, and now is creating flooding in the local area. So the question we need to ask ourselves is this sustainable? Then we go further. Let's say there is a port that we have financed. This is a harbor, port, shipping port that is financed by an Islamic bank, for example. Then we have to look at it. If this is the port that the mining products are being shipped, so it is not, we are not investing in the mining company, we are investing in a port. If that port is shipping bauxite, meaning we are indirectly involved in unsustainable activity. Because without this port, this bauxite would not have been shipped out. And without this port, the miners would not be involved in the unsustainable mining activity. So today the focus of Islamic banking ought to be, we are not there yet, but what we are saying is we should focus on sustainability policy. That means after looking at the profitability of the business, before we give a financing, we should look at, is this business destroying the environment? So we must ask them for environmental assessment. Number two, is this displacing any society? So we don't want them to go and build a toll road or build a dam that is going to displace the local community. Because we have a social responsibility. And we also need to make sure that it is not disruptive to the animal world. So these are all, a long going debate to what extent humans are involved in destroying the environment. And today is very clear. We are the biggest cause of the global warming and all the environmental disasters we are seeing today. So we need to integrate Islamic finance and ESG. And the key question is, who should be the monitor of this ESG compliance? Often, the market blames the Sharia scholars. It's easy to blame the Sharia scholars because, we have a very few Sharia scholars who monitor the Islamic banking activities. So even as of yesterday, we had a debate in MIA, Malaysian Institute of Accountants. We had a similar topic yesterday in KL Convention Center. And the accounting body was saying, we should get the Sharia scholars to impose the ESG. Because you are approving the Sharia contracts. You are the one who are auditing the Islamic bank, saying that their Islamic bank's activities are Sharia compliant. So the accounting body is saying the Sharia scholars must also impose tayyab standards, sustainability standards. So when you audit an Islamic bank, you must also provide the screening where you make sure the Islamic banks have complied with environmental standards in their financing activities, social responsibilities and governance. So my response was, we only have a handful of Sharia scholars. It's very difficult for the scholars to become the monitors. It should be driven by the regulator. The central bank must provide the environmental, social and governance guidelines, ESG guidelines for banks. And it should be across both conventional and Islamic. Because my contention was, Islamic finance industry is only 27%. Yes, we should also be driving this agenda, but if we are the only one involved in ESG compliance, and then you have 75% of the industry, or 77% of the industry which is conventional, and they are not concerned about the environment, social and governance implications, then you find we will not be sustainable as a country, because you still have 2/3 or 75% which is non-compliant with the ESG standards. So it has to be comprehensive, and only central bank can manage it because they regulate the entire banking sector. But in the West, if you look at the United Nations under Secretary General Kofi Annan, they've come up with 6 principles called United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment. And if you look at all the 6 principles, they're all Sharia compliant. This is what Sharia would have wanted us to do. This is the part of Maqasid al-Sharia. The higher objectives of Sharia is to achieve a balance between the needs of human and needs of the environment. And this is what would have been imposed on us under the concept of trusteeship. The role of man as trustee in this world would have required us to provide all these sustainability principles. Because why Islam looks at ownership of materials and wealth in this world as trusteeship is so that it can pass it on in the same, if not better shape, to the next generation, not in a worse shape. I mean, you'll be a terrible trustee if you inherit a property and then you destroyed it for the beneficiary. What kind of trusteeship is that? So the role of a trustee is to make sure that during his lifetime, he holds the trust assets in the best manner and pass it on to the next generation in the same shape, if not a better shape. So this is what the UNPRI actually requests. But there are about 79 financial institutions who have signed up to this UNPRI, 79 banks, financial institution. Not a single Islamic bank is in that list. So this is where we feel that Islamic banking needs to move. And as mentioned earlier, banks play an integral role. Banking sector is the heart that pumps liquidity into every segment of the society. Without a bank account, nobody can operate. So if banks are imposed with the requirement to be socially responsible, so before a company comes and opens a bank account, they'll have to have a certification that their activities are not impacting the environment. Then only you can open a bank account. Then only you can get a financing. So when the society moves to that direction, society must first recognize that we only have this world to live in, and environment is a big issue facing the future generation. And unless we do something about it, it will be a terrible mistake in this generation if we don't adopt a sustainability principle. So this is where I think Islamic banking can play a leading role. And as I mentioned earlier, it is the regulators who can make the difference. The regulators can basically provide screening methodology for the banks so that the banks will be then analyzed. The depositors then will get an assurance. So before you open a bank account, today when you open a bank account, your main criteria is this bank branch close to my house or office, right? You don't look at beyond, you don't look at the bank's financial statement. How big is this bank? How strong is this bank? Can they pay my money back? Nobody looks at it, right? All you look at is, ATM bank ni dekat tak dengan rumah saya, right? Is the branch close to my house? How good is the internet banking? That's all you look at. But I think in the West today, in the Western world, people are starting to look at whether this bank is a sustainable bank. So the NGOs go out and give a list that, look, if you bank with bank A, B, C, D, you are protecting the environment. Your money that you deposit is not harming the environment. So banks in the West are now basically moving towards sustainability, because the stakeholders, basically the shareholders, the depositors, the regulators are all pushing them. Whereas in the emerging markets, whether it's Malaysia or India or Indonesia, we are saying, okay, let us destroy the environment first, and then bila kita dah maju, we will then change the way we do business, and we will reinvigorate the environment. So these are the ESG developments in Malaysia. We have seen Securities Commission, and this is all pioneering work. I think Malaysia, compared to many other countries in ASEAN and Asia, has been very active in developing this ESG principle. So 2014, Securities Commission introduced the SRI Sukuk. As you know, Sukuk is an Islamic bond, a capital markets instrument, and we are a leading, yes, we're just finishing, yes, thank you. We would basically have a framework for socially responsible investment, and since 2014 there had been only one SRI Sukuk by Khazanah National. So we have not seen other sectors following this initiative and coming up with a more sustainable Sukuk. 2014 ESG Index was launched. ESG Index basically helps fund managers to track companies. There are 34 companies who complied with the ESG, only 34 companies in Malaysia who comply with this requirement. So fund managers who invest in ESG stocks can track this index. And Value Cap has gone out and said they're going to contribute 1 billion for investment in companies that scored high on ESG. So this green technology will be ESG compliant because it's environmentally compliant. So we have money available for investments. In fact, globally, the amount of money that has been committed for sustainable businesses is $59 trillion. And they've been able to invest only 22 trillion because there are not many investment opportunities. So $59 trillion have been committed for ESG, and they were only able to get $22 trillion since 2015. So there are a lot of opportunities for companies in Malaysia to come up with the ESG compliance. And EPF is also now saying we want to shift a lot of our investments into Sharia compliant. As you know, how many of you have EPF, Sharia EPF? Lain semua have not registered. I mean, it's shocking. I mean, all this while Muslims have been asking for Sharia compliant EPF, and then when they launch, nobody has registered. It takes literally 3 minutes to go and register. So again, Muslims have this apathy that tak apalah, we don't mind. But then when we see some pork traces on Cadbury's, that was a big issue. So I think we really lose our priorities. So this is where I see EPF and QAB all moving in the direction, but what I see is Muslims are not demanding for it. So that's why we need a bottoms-up approach, that Muslims as stakeholders in the economy must demand, because otherwise our future generation will not have forests, will not have a sustainable life. So unless we wake up and make the difference, the change will not happen from outside. It has to happen within our societies. And that's the end of my presentation. There's a section on Khazanah's Sukuk, SRI Sukuk, which is for your reference. You can always go through the handout. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.